The work is no longer like, can we draft a better story? The work is, do we all mean the same thing by this story? Like before we ship it, before we scale it, before we build an entire campaign around it. Because once a story leaves the room, it stops becoming language and starts becoming something people have to engage with. It becomes something people actually have to live inside. If meaning fractures at that point, well, then execution fractures, and then culture drifts, and then trust erodes. And meanwhile, AI is just kind of sitting there. AI doesn't feel that fracture. Humans feel the fracture. Hey, welcome to Reculture. My name is Casciotta. This is a podcast about better messages. Messages that don't just tell us what to react to. There are a lot of those right now. But messages that actually help us understand this moment that we are in. Ones that don't just grab our attention, but then afterwards, point us somewhere. Because whether we are navigating a brand or a team or a family or even just the world right now, we are all living inside of stories. And the most important story is the one that we're becoming. Okay, so maybe you are like me and you're leading people and you're making things and you're trying to do it in a meaningful way so the story sticks and it scales and it grows beyond you. And maybe you've been asking this question that I've been asking myself lately, like, is this kind of work focused on brand and meaning and alignment, designed for a workforce that might not exist in the same way 10 years from now? Like, if companies are automating more and more, if AI can make podcasts and write campaigns and summarize strategy and generate frameworks and X, Y, and Z, like what is left for humans to actually do? What is left for me to do? I think we've all been asking ourselves a version of this question lately. So buckle up. We are going to attempt to answer it. Like actually, it's going to go deep. So stick with me. But first, a story to start us off. So a few years ago, I was in Tokyo working with a company on brand strategy, and we had an interpreter, and the stuff that we were doing, like it was heavy, important stuff, right? Like everyone needed to be on the same page for this. Like everybody needed to understand the stakes involved. And what was weird is that language I thought was very simple in English. Like this interpreter would take an extremely long time to translate to the team. Like there'd be lots of dialogue back and forth, and sometimes I would just kind of sit back and wonder what they were discussing. I don't know, maybe they were making fun of me or something. But on the other hand, like some of these concepts that I've been working on, some of these concepts I've been struggling to communicate clearly to companies in the US, like stuff that felt really complicated to me, I'd be super verbose and the translator would try and translate, and then the team would come back like really quickly and be like, oh yeah, we have a word for that. It would be like this one syllable word in Japanese that perfectly described the thing I was trying to say. A simple but really important lesson that's going to shape the rest of this podcast, really. Language and meaning are not the same thing. Language and what language means to people are not the same thing. Language is becoming super easy to scale, right? No doubt about that. Like we've got these large language models. Meaning, I think, is actually becoming harder. And so let's talk a little bit about the stuff that is legitimately getting easier first, right? AI, extremely good at two things: pattern recognition and symbol manipulation. AI can predict patterns in language, right? And then recombine words based on probability. It's really good at drafting, summarizing, basically formatting at scale. And if you give it, 5 different versions of a company strategy, it can do pretty amazing things like detect common themes and generate 4 clean narrative options. And then it can even refine those options based on your feedback. So, I mean, here's the brass tacks. Like it can produce something that sounds pretty coherent, and in many cases it kind of sounds better than maybe what a team of humans can do on its own. And to me, that is real legitimate value that I don't think anyone should ignore at this point, because for CMOs, like that means a new level of efficiency. For founders, that means speed. For lean teams like mine, it's access to things that were harder to access before. And yes, AI can absolutely reduce the need for certain kinds of external support, drafting contracts, for instance, generating content calendars, polishing language, summarizing research. Those layers are all squeezing. And I think pretending otherwise would be naive at this point. Look, here's the part that I think that matters, because even if AI can produce a super clear story, and it can, even if leadership is like, yeah, no, that all sounds right, it doesn't mean all the people that organization needs to survive will interpret it the same way. Organizations are not language systems. Organizations are coordination systems under uncertainty. And coordination doesn't depend on just pattern recognition. It doesn't just depend on symbol manipulation. It depends on shared interpretation. AI can align the words. It cannot align incentives, meaning like it can't resolve the fact that different people are rewarded, evaluated, promoted based on different definitions of success. And AI can surface those patterns, but it can't negotiate status. It doesn't navigate power dynamics or ego or fear or hierarchy. It doesn't navigate the subtle human calculations happening in the room about who wins, who loses, who gets blamed if things fails. AI can generate clarity. It can't generate commitment. And here's why I think this is particularly important. Like if you lead a team, you know this. The real fracture point in most organizations is not in the drafting stage, it's in the interpretation stage. It's that moment after, five super smart people walk out of the same meeting with five slightly different understandings of what they just heard. That gap is not a language problem, it's a meaning problem. And this has kind of actually frustrated me over the years because it's ironic to me that meaning is kind of an ambiguous term. So I'm actually going to attempt to explain what I mean by mean. In short, like meaning is what counts as the right thing. And to be fair, AI can help clarify that, right? It can ask you better follow up questions. It can prompt you to be more specific. It can draft more detailed definitions. It honestly can even expose contradictions in how you might be thinking or describing your values. Like for all the talk on these LMs being sycophantic, I have found that if you push it to push back, it will push back. But again, clarification, not the same thing as commitment. So, for example, if a company says it values, innovation, well, what actually counts as innovative? Is it speed? Is it risk? Is it disruption? Is it efficiency? Like AI can help you describe that more precisely, but it opens up another question, and I think it's the more consequential one in real life. What will we choose when innovation costs us something? Like if a leader says like, prioritize people. Okay, well, what does it mean to prioritize people? Does it mean flexibility, accountability, performance, empathy? Like AI can generate a clear policy, it can structure like a better statement, but culture is revealed when revenue drops, when pressure rises, when there are trade-offs in play. That's the moment where meaning stops being language and becomes culture. So, and by the way, like obviously there's lots of problems and challenges with AI and those who own these models. I'm not trying to oversimplify anything here. I'm just trying to be helpful and realistic and a little bit hopeful in a era that feels kind of disorienting, right? And also giant asterisk like none of us know where this is going completely. I don't know where this is going completely. But here is where I see the opportunity for human work that feels durable. It's not replacing AI. It's not even really competing with AI necessarily, but operating at the moment where meaning becomes consequential. The work is no longer like, can we draft a better story? The work is, do we all mean the same thing by this story? Like before we ship it, before we scale it, before we build an entire campaign around it. Because once a story leaves the room, it stops becoming language and starts becoming something people have to engage with. It becomes something people actually have to live inside. If meaning fractures at that point, well, then execution fractures, and then culture drifts, and then trust erodes. And meanwhile, AI is just kind of sitting there. AI doesn't feel that fracture. Humans feel the fracture. So I think that's where humans should put their energy, especially those who consider themselves, brand people or story people or culture people. And just to make sure, we're not being all pie in the sky about it. I just want to call out something that, I've been worried about, something I feel like is both a risk and actually potentially an opportunity because I think the obvious existential question we're all sort of dealing with is like, okay, but what if an organization just automates every human out of it to maximize profit, right? What if that's where we're ultimately headed? Like we're just all of those kind of doughy humans riding around in the scooters, like in the Pixar movie Wall-E, right? So here's my take. If an organization could truly reduce itself to just pure automation, it would actually stop being an organization and simply be software. And here's the thing, I for sure think that's gonna be the goal. Like, many actually already have done this. I think it'd be naive, to think that we're not going to continue to see that trend rise, that people aren't gonna try and get humans completely out of the loop. But I could be wrong. I don't think we're going to suddenly stop needing organizations altogether. Why? Because remember, organizations are groups of people who can coordinate systems under things like uncertainty and volatility and change. I don't see those things going away anytime soon. Like, the moment people are part of the equation, the difficulty shifts from execution, right? That's the easy part. That's AI, that's software, to coordination. And coordination is meaning dependent. Coordination is the thing that raises its hand and asks, like, hey, what actually counts as the right thing around here? And here's where this is going. Like, 'cause I think the answer to the question actually has a name. Like, it has something that we can point to. It's got something that we already have language for. Culture. Culture's not perks. It's not posters. It's not a values page on a website. Culture is the collective, the shared answer to the question, what does this mean? What counts as the right thing around here? What counts as success, right? What counts as risk? What counts as loyalty? What counts as failure? And those answers aren't generated by better sentences. They materialize through shared meaning. And shared meaning requires tension, it requires clarification, it requires conversation in real life. And more often than not, at least in my experience, requires a little courage. So here's the shift I think is actually happening, plainly said. For years, we thought the work was output, right? We thought it was more content, more clarity, more consistency. But the deeper work is durability. Does the story hold together once people start acting on it in real life? Does it survive well? Does it walk on its own 2 feet when it's exposed to human contact? That's post AI. That's about contact and connection. And connection is social. AI is only going to get better, right? It's going to draft faster. It's going to summarize better. It's going to sharpen, it's going to clarify sentences, blah, 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 blah. And if I'm a betting man, it's going to notice a lot more than we expect it to. Like, I think it's going to probably do some very human like things. I don't know, detect hesitation or translate emotion. I don't think any of us really know where this is going. But here's what seems to be true so far. Even if AI can help articulate values, even if it can help refine trade offs, even if it can help pressure test strategy, someone still has to decide. Someone has to bear the cost. Someone at the end of the day has to live with the consequences. So the future of work, we call strategic or creative, things like storytelling and branding is probably not going to be about producing more language. That's still helpful, but it's been downgraded. It's probably going to be more about stewarding a moment, the moment where language becomes reality. It's going to shift from producing a bunch of messages to stabilizing meaning. It's going to transfer from generating a bunch of ideas to helping those ideas survive contact with human life. And this is where I actually think things get really interesting. I think this is where I get really hopeful because I think we are approaching a kind of paradox moment. Like, for years, we've been worried that technology is making us less social and more isolated. And I think that is 100% true. But if the future of human work depends on stabilizing meaning under pressure, right? Clarifying it, that's going to take people with some banging social skills. Like, it used to be, if you wanted your kids to get ahead in life and in their career, what would you do? You would teach them to code. Now I think it looks more like teaching them to decode, right? To decode humans, to how to solve conflict, how to understand different perspectives, how to look for nuance. Those skills become strategic. They become rare. They become scarce because you cannot coordinate meaning without genuine, engaged, empathetic conversation. You cannot build commitment without trust, something that gets learned and earned and worked out in real life. You can't navigate trade-offs without some kind of relationship. I think the future will still belong to those who can leverage their creativity to aim people somewhere. Absolutely. But I think it's starting to look a lot less like content production and more like social infrastructure. A lot less like social media and more like social work. Not necessarily in the bureaucratic sense, but like in the human sense. To name the tension, to surface the misalignment, to keep people in the room, listening, paying attention when the stakes are high. I think the felt needs from leaders, it's going to shift from, I need someone who can help me share my story to I need someone who can translate intent when it's getting distorted by all of the generated noise around. So I don't think it's like, will AI replace creative work or strategy work or, fill in the blank kind of work? I think the better question, the better framing is what work remains necessary once you can automate whatever you want to say. And the answer, as far as I can see, is this: it's the work of making sure what we say is what we mean, and that what we mean equals the thing that actually shows up once people start living inside it. That's culture, and that's where the future of work lives. Thanks so much for listening. If these conversations resonate with you, you can explore more episodes, writing, and ideas at notes.reculture.tv. And if you'd like to learn more about Reculture, our sense-making studio focused on brand, culture, and media advisory, our home is reculture.tv.